listening to the Board Game Snobs podcast, a ridiculous podcast with ridiculous hosts that discuss ridiculous things, and any mention of board games is purely coincidental. And so, without further ado, and with a heavy dollop of shame and embarrassment on my part, I give you the Board Game Snobs.
I'm your host, Gaby. With me today, guest co-host, Mike Dilisio. Mike, welcome to the show.
Thank you, Gaby. Guest co-host sounds like, I don't know, it sounds a little placating. Like, look, I gotta give you a title. I have to call you something. I can't just let you sit here. I have to give you some type of honorary title. So, guest co-host, I suppose I'll take it. But make no mistake, Gaby, I'm gonna make the most of this opportunity.
Well, you're gonna have to, because your contemporary is primary guest host.
Please do not refer to him as my contemporary. I think that if I have to think of him as my contemporary, I have to rethink the entire framework of the universe, Gaby.
As you know, if we don't say his name, he won't even listen to the podcast. So you got to say it at least a couple times throughout.
Well, the thing is, he would listen regardless because he thinks there'd be a hope. The thing is, we let him off the hook really early by giving him his little call out. What you should have done is waited to the very end.
I'll edit it out.
And then, you know what I mean? There you go. I like that.
I'm going to edit it out. I'm just, have we said his name?
Yeah, you definitely said his name. Okay. Also, you said the word edit, which is a term that I'm not familiar with. So is it true that people edit podcasts? Is that what you're telling me, Gaby? Is that actual editing happens during podcasts from time to time?
Some of us do. Some of us do. And, it's something I'm proud of. I do with great vigor, because without it, we'd have been, run off the airwaves of podcasting long ago. I make us sound somewhat sensical.
Well, that is an impressive achievement for sure, knowing the people that frequent the Board Game Snobs podcast. But, I'm used to, generally speaking, by the time that I've kind of unplugged the microphone, powered down the computer, usually at that point, it's already gone up live, the show that we just recorded. So Dan is let's just say editing is not his number one favorite thing to do. But Gaby, I'm thrilled to be on a professional podcast. I'm feeling like I'm in the big leagues now.
Well, it might be the fact that y'all don't have to edit as much. So it's like, who is the better podcast? The one that has a fantastic editor, or the podcast hosts that are so good at their job, they don't require that much editing. Wow,
Gaby, this has been a mutual love fest, and I hope that I'm allowed to say that. I know this is a family-friendly show. But yeah, I think we both have a great deal of appreciation for each other. I for you, for sure, Enrique, and I think we'll stop there. I think that's where the end of my appreciation goes.
Sounds good. That's where it should.
It's wonderful to be here, Gaby. Thank you for asking me to come. I get to get a little bit of nervous energy out because tomorrow, I haven't even really talked to you about this, but tomorrow I fly to Germany.
Oh my God.
For the Essen Game Fair. It'll be my first time going, to that convention. It'll be my first time in Germany. And I'm going to say it because I'm excited about it, even though I'm only going to see the airport. I'm also going to be flying into France. So I'll be able to say I've visited two countries I've never been to before, although Paris is not really, that's kind of a cheat because I'm only seeing the airport.
But I'm very happy for you because I remember you joining I remember discussing, you got on the Dice Tower and then everything gets canceled.
Yep. That's exactly right. We were scheduled to go to the UK Gaming Expo and to Essen, and both got canceled because it was the onset of COVID. And so I was pretty gutted. I was like, my first year here, I was super excited about it, and it didn't happen. But now, while I haven't had a chance to go to UKGE yet, maybe one day, I am going to go to Essen. And so I'm very, very much looking forward to the experience. I don't know that I'm looking forward to the travel, but I am looking forward to the experience.
Do you have like Valium and a flask of whiskey to help alleviate that? Or how do you deal with flying? Because I do not deal with it well.
Well, generally speaking, I don't have a huge issue with flying in general. The only real issue that I have is that, this is going to be a lengthy flight, of course, transcontinental and such. But it's also going to be a red eye where we're leaving in the evening here and we're going to be arriving tomorrow or Tuesday morning there. I don't sleep well on planes. And so I'm going to take some Benadryl, maybe. Maybe I'll do the Benadryl thing. And I've had people kind of recommend that. And I've taken Benadryl before in situations where I kind of needed to get a little bit of sleep. We'll see what happens, Gaby. We'll see what happens.
In order to fall asleep on that one, you may need to take a bilio of Benadryl.
Oh, breaking out the new terminology. Had you heard of this word before?
No, of course not. No one has.
No. I'm still relatively sure
I don't
he
think
made it
they've
up,
said that
though,
since Queen Elizabeth was born, perhaps, maybe.
Too soon.
Oh,
Too soon.
My apologies. So his Dice Tower, have they taken over the penthouse floor suite of a hotel there? Or where are you going to be staying in Essen?
No. I don't know exactly, but the place that I'll be staying is a few, I believe, subway stops away from the convention hall. So we're not staying at one of the hotels that are directly connected to it. So we'll probably end up taking the train in every morning, but I'm not too worried about that. That part is cool because that's one of the things that I'm looking forward to is kind of getting a sense for what the country is like. And as weird as it sounds, transportation is something that's interesting to me. Like when I was in the UK, I was super excited to go on the tube and go on their bus system and stuff I don't know. I think that's neat, but I've never, claimed to be an interesting person, Gaby.
You don't have to claim to be when you are one, dearest Mike.
Let's keep that love fest going.
You're one of my heroes. Dan, not so much.
No, well, look. Dan would be the anti-hero, is that
Dan's
right?
The anti. He's the Black Adam of the podcast, if you will.
Yeah. Are you excited about Black Adam?
No, don't know the character. Never heard of him until a few years ago, and I'm like, oh, okay, well, whatever. The Rock pretty much is The Rock in every movie. Maybe he'll be somewhat more gloomier in this movie. We'll see what happens. But I mean, it's just The Rock. I enjoy his stuff. I'm a popcorn movie type of guy. And I didn't even go see Thor when it came out. The most recent Thor. I waited till it came out to Disney Plus before I watched it, and it was fine. I was a little disappointed, but
I still haven't seen that. My wife saw it, but I haven't seen it yet. So I'm one Thor behind.
It's got a few laughs in there. You're in Miami, and as I mentioned previously before, I have a relative that we just visited. So they're in Miami too. Y'all just dealt with a bilio of rain down there, right?
we did. But I and the rest of the Dice Tower crew were remarkably lucky in that Hurricane Ian was pretty well northwest of us. And so while we dealt with a little bit of the outer band issue where, rainy and windy, and the biggest inconvenience, and it was only that, really was a bit of flooding. Whereas, there's some pretty widespread destruction, on the west Gulf Coast of Florida. And so, obviously thoughts go out to all those people that are dealing with that. But luckily we didn't really have any real issues. So
it just missed y'all.
I haven't dealt with you did. It really did. I haven't dealt with anything dead on since I've lived here. So,
well, that's good for you. Unfortunate for the West Coast.
It is. And from what I'm not even going to say because I don't know well enough, but I thought I had heard somewhere that the Gulf side doesn't tend to get hit as often, but maybe I'm completely out of I could be completely wrong on that. Cause I do know, I remember it seems like doesn't it always seem like it's Louisiana that gets really, really badly hit, and sometimes the panhandle of Florida. But yeah, I don't know. I'm not a meteorologist, Gaby, although I play one on TV.
I'm glad you're safe. Everyone else, I don't know. I don't watch the news because it's all bad. It's all bad news.
It is, and it's interesting you say that. There was a time period, let's say that it was basically in the height of COVID, where I was finding myself watching the news every morning before I would go into work. And I finally just came to the conclusion that was not a good idea.
That's a bad idea.
I'm not joking at all. I was getting into a routine where I would wake up, get my coffee, shower, put on the news right before I go into work, and it would put me into this anxiety spiral right before I would go into work, which is not a good headspace to be. So the news is, look, with the way news has evolved over the years, I'm a man of a bit advanced age. At least that's what everyone tells me. I'm older than you, Gaby.
What?
But I do remember. I am. It's true. I do remember when news primarily. I was a kid, but I do remember when news primarily was the evening news or the drive time.
It usually came in like this. Beep, 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 beep.
Right, yeah.
Right.
Through teletype, yeah, absolutely. And Walter Cronkite used to come to dinner at our house all the time.
But the kid just shot.
But that used to be the news, right? But now it seems like it's more about kind of stirring up people's emotions, and what's going to get the views is going to be the things that freak people out.
Al Capone on a rampage in Chicago.
Yeah, see? All of a sudden, you've got the newscasters are all hitmen in a 20s gangster flick. Let's send it over to Mickey with the news. Yeah.
Oh well, I don't forgot what we were saying. Oh, bad news. Yeah. That's what Twitter. They call it doom scrolling. Because literally you're just looking at all bad news. It's awful. It's absolutely awful. And of course they slant it towards negative things because unfortunately that is what we are attracted to as weirdo humans. We're like, what happened? Oh, what's this bad news that's going on?
Well, I think that it's akin to the, rubbernecking when there's an accident, right? There is a morbid curiosity that I think most of us have. And, I think it's a pretty universal human trait. I think some people are maybe more attracted to that than others, but I think it's pretty universal that when there's something that is, shocking or even potentially tragic, that it's going to get your attention. So I get that, but I also get that it's probably not always in our best interest to surround ourselves, to become enveloped like a pig in a blanket with that crusty croissant of tragedy.
The tragedy kolache, you might say.
oh, kolaches, Gaby. Do they have those around there?
Yeah. It's kolache. They say kolache at the donut store here, but it's like pig in a blanket, the same thing as some people call it, I suppose.
I had never heard of a kolache.
No, yeah, sometimes it's a sausage, or I don't know what you want to call it. It might be wrapped with some sort of breading, or like the kolaches here kind of look like it's some sort of roll that is just a sausage has been stuffed in the middle of.
What the Brits would call a sausage roll, yeah. I had never heard of a kolache until maybe, 6 years ago when I was living in Indiana still. There was a place called the Kolache Factory. And I had no idea what it was. And I don't know if I asked somebody or if I looked it up just out of curiosity. And at this place, they sold both savory and sweet kolaches, Gaby. Both savory and sweet. So they were almost like, kind of like you said. But I saw some in different shapes. Some of them looked almost more like turnovers or popovers. Some of them looked a little bit more like the pig in a blanket type of a thing. But yeah, there was all kinds of different types there. And they were delicious. I tried several of them.
It's my kryptonite. Many things are my kryptonite. If Superman had as many types of kryptonite as I did, he'd be dead a long time ago.
I saw your post from the state fair. So you were surrounded by delectable goodies there, weren't you?
Turkey legs, upwards of $15 for a turkey leg. $15 for a singular turkey leg.
How much does it cost to buy an entire turkey?
Probably not. I don't know.
It's got to be what, $8? $8 for a turkey nowadays? Isn't that what they're going for?
Go to Walmart, I'm sure. Now, I don't know. I'm out of touch with the animal itself because, fortunately, I don't know a whole lot about turkeys. but I do know about cheeseburgers, and I had a cheeseburger there as well, and it was upwards of $12 to get a cheeseburger. It's ridiculous prices. But if you go to the fair, you go in knowing, you know what? I'm going to get messed around on all these prices. I know that. So let me go to the ATM, take out a small loan, and go in to buy a fried Twinkie and a turkey leg and $50 lighter. There you go.
Well, luckily, I'm sure there were no fees charged at the ATM at the state fair.
No.
I'm sure that there were no carnies that were getting your PIN code. Gaby, I don't mean to shame you here, but if you're going to go to a state fair, I love a good cheeseburger as much as the next guy. Make no mistake. I do love a good cheeseburger, but if I'm going to a state fair, I'm not eating a cheeseburger. I'm getting something really just completely off the rails.
Well, this was the local county fair.
Oh, God, it wasn't the state fair.
It was not the state fair of Texas. The state fair of Texas, I will not pay them prices. It's $20-something just to park. It's outlandish. The last time I was there, it's insane. And you walk around and you look at the shortest horse in the world and you're like, I paid $50 for this and a fried Twinkie. I don't do. I've been once to the State Fair of Texas. I was not impressed. I did not ride the gigantic Ferris wheel that they brag about. I don't know if it's like the size of the Eye in London, but it's huge. It's huge. I have no interest in getting up there. I'm scared of heights in the first place, so no Ferris wheel for me. And you walk around, and it's just hot and miserable, and you can look at some animals, some livestock. I've seen livestock. I live in the country. I don't need to see cows and horses and all this stuff. The shortest horse in the world, I want to go check it out. And you know what?
Sure.
It's not that short. It's still not that impressive.
It's still not worth the $50.
It's still not worth the $50. But, you know, some people say you got to experience it once. Then you go into those halls where they're selling everything. That's somewhat, you know, you might find something there that's interesting, but I'm not a fair person.
Yeah, and then you've got all of the very, very dodgy rides, which you can tell were put up under the influence of several illegal substances, being run by people who have very little interest in the safety and security of anybody there. Yeah, it's the fair. I think it's something that, you know, if I never go to another fair, I'd be okay. I've been to several throughout my life, but I'm not itching to go to the state fair. If that's, I don't even know where the state fair is in Florida, for that matter. I'm assuming it's nowhere near us.
Yeah. So the state fair. Why am I laughing? I don't know. No edit points here. The State Fair of Texas. Not a fan. I've experienced it. I'm good to go. Six Flags, don't care for that either. You know, you get to a point when you're old and morbidly obese, most rides aren't for you. So you may experience some of that, Mike, but you're a trim fit man, so you could ride some of these rides.
I don't know about all that.
I just remembered what I was going to say.
You remember what you're going to say. Let's double back, Gaby. So look, for the benefit of the listeners, we were talking about the state fair, and it was such a entrancing, spellbinding conversation that Gaby got lost for a while. And he had something he wanted to say. I stepped all over him like as if we were dancing.
Words. No. And you know what? It's a stupid comment, but I had.
Well, I need to hear it now. I have to hear it now.
I was going to say, since TikTok and I see all those videos, I have no interest in any rides at a fair because TikTok is mostly filled with rides gone wrong from the fair, and I have zero desire to experience that myself.
Wow. Well, Gaby, if there's one thing that comment did, is it made me, maybe for the first time ever, have me want to look at TikTok, because I probably shouldn't take it as a point of pride, because it really does, put me out there as a bit out of touch with modern culture. But I've never downloaded. Now, I've seen TikToks on other platforms, right? Because they get transferred over to Facebook and Twitter and such, and I've seen them there. But I've never actually downloaded the TikTok app. But if 80 to 90% of it is fair rides gone wrong, I may need to investigate this, Gaby. That could be a whole new entertainment channel for me. Of course, being said, as long as nobody gets seriously hurt, as long as it's only at the level of America's Funniest Home Videos where people are, frequently taking tennis balls into the groin and, head over heels into a backyard's pool or something like that type of stuff I can handle.
So speaking of Billy O, if I was like, I should save this for when I have one of our British fellow podcasters on, but it's two Americans. I have a British man as my primary guest host. You have a British man as your normal co-host.
Correct.
This is from goodhousekeeping.com. The 40 quirkiest British slang words every American should know. So here's a test for you, Dan.
40 of them?
There are 40
Okay,
according to Good Housekeeping. The first one mentioned is Bagsy. Have you ever heard of Bagsy?
Bagsy. Gaby, I want to say that I've heard this term before, but I cannot define it for you. Bagsy.
The example it gives is we're fixing to take a ride in the car, and one of your British mates says, Bagsy!
Okay, well then I don't know what it is. But it doesn't say we're fixing to take a ride in the car there, does it? On the site? Is that really what it says? Good Housekeeping has gotten pretty folksy, haven't they?
No, in fact, it says shouting Bagsy is the equivalent of claiming shotgun on the front seat.
I have heard it. Now that you've given me the context, I have heard it, but I would not have been able to recall it.
I think it's similar to dibs.
That makes sense.
Have you heard of a bog roll?
I have heard of a bog roll, Gaby.
What is a bog roll?
You know what that is? That is toilet paper. It has to be toilet paper because I've heard of, thanks to Dan, I've heard of a bathroom referred to as a bog, and then I have to assume that a roll is a roll for the toilet. Am I correct, Gaby?
You are correct, sir.
That's fantastic. A point for Dilisio.
Yeah, a bog. I mean, a bog here is like it's
swamp,
could be like
right?
a swamp. Yeah. I mean, I guess that equates.
So could you call an alligator a bog roll? A bog log, maybe? If you have a bog log, you definitely need a bog roll, Gaby. That's one thing I've learned in all of my years. Is that you have to have a bog roll if you've got a bog log.
With you and Dan, it always goes back to bathroom humor for some reason.
I didn't realize that so much of what I said was scatological, but apparently it is. I really probably need to do some deep inner work to try to...
The scat cast. That's what...
If that doesn't exist, I will eat this paperback. I'm sure there's a scat cast out there.
I'm sure there is, unfortunately. Okay. Some of these things, I'm not budge up. You ever heard of budge up?
Budge up?
You're on a subway and someone says, budge up, mate.
Does that just mean like scoot forward?
Basically, yes. Move over.
Oh, okay. I had not heard that, but you gave me the, big clue.
What about if someone says, oh, no, I'm not going to go in. See, here, I tend to go Australian. I don't know what. I'm not going to go in there.
That's not a knife. That's a knife. All right.
I'm not going to go in there. There's a chock-a-block of people in there.
Yeah, chock-a-block just means full. A whole lot. Big...
Look at you. Mm-hmm. He really is rubbing off on
baby.
You.
I'm an international man of mystery. Don't let anyone tell you different.
Codswallop.
I have heard codswallop. I've heard it from Dan, I think. I'm not going to be able to say, but I thought it was kind of like a big mess or something like that.
Yeah, it's nonsense.
Okay, nonsense. So basically, 95% of the Sporadically Bored podcast.
Sporadically, yeah, there you go. Codswallop the podcast.
See, I had to get a plug in there because Dan would be very upset if I didn't mention our podcast.
Basically, we have the same audience. That's the way this.
We do, don't you? I have to think that the Venn diagram for our podcast is just basically one big circle, right? I mean.
Except ours may have a few more Texans in it than that's about it.
You may have a few Texans that are just skimming around the outside of the circle. Yeah, that's true.
Gormless.
God, yeah, Dan has also used this word gormless before.
He's probably called you gormless.
He probably has. I can't tell you.
Lacking intelligence.
Well, okay, there you go. He's definitely called me gormless before.
I would never call you that, but I'm sure I know Dan and how he disrespects you, and you don't need to stand for it, Mike.
Frankly, Gaby, I won't stand for it. I refuse to stand for it. I'll sit and take it in the manner that it was given.
I'll give you two more. So
Two more.
I'm sure you know what knackered is.
Yes. Very, very tired.
If you're knackered, you go to the kip.
Is that a nap?
No.
Or the bedroom?
The bed.
The bed. The kip. Okay. I've not heard that before.
Know your onions. I just now saw this for myself. Know your onions. You really know your onions, don't you, Mike? There I go. Australian again.
I like a good onion, mate.
And Dan doesn't even talk British. I don't know. He talks something weird. He's not any British I've ever heard of before. Ben Maddox is a true British speaker.
He is a true British speaker, and he doesn't even live in the UK. He lives in Berlin, and he sounds more British than Dan. Yeah, Dan, I can't figure him out. He's got a weird accent. It really does have a weird accent. I've been I've mentioned this on our podcast, so you may have heard
sporadically
this.
Bored.
Our Venn diagram of listeners may have heard this before too. But I've been having a lot of fun here lately by just asking Dan questions about various towns in the UK that I'm watching on 90 Day Fiancé UK edition. I'll say, oh, this person is from, this area. And I'm like, Dan, have you ever been here? Tell me about this place. And I think he's getting annoyed. So mission accomplished.
But if he did know about all those towns, he would really know his onions.
He would know his onions. Now, is this a separate thing you're looking at? Know your onions?
No, it says, got full marks on your math test? You must really know your onions.
Oh, so this is a UK phrase.
Yeah. It says the phrase actually serves as a compliment, meaning knowledgeable or clever.
That must be why I've never heard that before, because no one has ever said that in and around Dan's presence. He does not know his onions.
Well, there's many more. But we gotta eke this out over several podcasts. So I can't use them all at once.
No, this is gold, Gaby, and you can't waste this gold. You have to meet it out into just bite-sized morsels.
Called milking.
Mm-hmm. Milk it for all it's worth. So Gaby, you said you were getting ready to transition to something far more interesting.
No, I was not. I'm glad you intervened. Actually, go ahead. I'm hoping you really know your onions. Go ahead.
Oh, Gaby, I don't know what the hell an onion is. What am I? I mean, I'm clueless. You've said that you have been like your recording has been less frequent here lately. Is that right?
Yeah.
Or it's been a while since you've recorded and you feel a little out of practice.
Due to our schedules, we record once a month, and depending on how that month transpires, we record in bulk. And then we milk it throughout the several weeks afterwards. So we record several, and then I'll release one here, release one next week. We are releasing weekly, but we're recording all at once.
How is that working for you? How does that work for you, or is that something that you're doing out of necessity, or do you find that you're actually preferring it that way? All
of the above. That's a cheat answer. It is nice because it does prevent us from having to if we were to, there's no way we can possibly schedule hey, we need to meet, or even Zoom. Like Jerry just doesn't. Jerry works. He's got stuff going on nonstop. He's building his home presently. That's the biggest thing. He's moving out this weekend. His home's not fully built, so he's going to be out of pocket, living in, a temporary abode until then. So blah, blah, blah. So he's been doing that for like the past 6 months to a year. I don't know when he started. I don't ask him questions about his personal life. It's only board gaming related here.
Sure.
But he's been doing that plus his job. Me, I'm more free, but even now, like, we're usually doing stuff on the weekends. So me and Jerry have our first Friday of the month scheduled. That's when we play a couple of games, and we spend most of the time podcasting. It also kind of stinks because used to, when we had more time, we could spend like just a full day just playing games. Now we have to squeeze in, all right, let's play a few games that we can talk about. But then we have to we need to start recording or else we're not going to have any podcasts. So we record, and that's oftentimes the shortness of our podcast. A 30-minute podcast is about what you're going to get from if we go an hour, that's a special day, or we just have something to talk about. But we record several all at once, at least 3. We try to do at least 3. And then I've been supplementing that with shows like this one where I have to find someone else to co-host with me to fill in the gap until we can get together again. Now, that is not ideal because we do get Facebook posts, emails, all these things that are more current that we may say something in our podcast that we've put out the first week. Well, then someone responds to that. Well, we don't get to it till a month or so later. Or anything in board gaming, which we're not really a board gaming news podcast, but if something happens that people are talking about, it's hard for us to stay really current on anything. But that's just the way we have to record. We just get together, record, and somewhere in between there, if we get some emails that give us something to talk about, we always try to read those emails at some point in a future recording. But it is very difficult to keep current on things. That's the only negative I would say. That and the fact that we're always going meta. I always go to meta. But behind the scenes stuff, when we get together to record, and most people won't know, but so the podcast after this one will be, we get together this Friday. Today's October 2nd, the Sunday. We're going to get together this Friday, October 7th. Good Lord willing, the creeks don't rise, and Jerry's able to come, and we can get together. That the first podcast we record, I personally feel is always our worst of the batch. It's just, you haven't gotten to your groove.
Yeah,
you got to get in our groove of our going back and forth. Our second and third or whatever after that, you can tell we're in our groove. I can tell, especially as an editor. But
sure,
yeah, if you listen to the first podcast for the batch, that's the worst one. And then the second, third, fourth, you can say, okay, now I'm back. And that's why I was jokingly saying, well, not jokingly, it's it's been a while since I've podcasted. I set up my equipment. I'm like, how do we do all this again?
This was a shrewd move on your part, Gaby, because if I'm understanding this correctly, you're going to have this scheduled so that this episode goes up right before that first one of the group that you'd be recording. And so when you have this, even that one is going to sound fantastic because you have me to kind of set the plate, right? You lower those expectations. And so then people will come in and feel like, hey, this is the Board Game Snobs gold that I came here for. I do what I can, Gaby. I will lower expectations. That's why they pay me the big bucks. You got to lower those expectations.
You're being too modest, Mike. Now that you're in the big time of the Dice Tower, you're a name to be reckoned with. I'm going to put you in there in bright shining lights on the marquee so that those numbers come raining down upon the probably most downloads of the year. That'll break Dan's heart, but most downloads of the year.
You probably are, I don't know who your hosting service is, but you may want to actually get in there and go to the higher level, because if you do put my name in there, I'm not sure that your server is going to be able to handle that amount of downloads, Gaby. So just be prepared. But your life is about to change right now. Enjoy normal life as it is right now. You've got a very small amount of time to live as a regular human being. Let me just put you this way. After this podcast, the next time you go to the fair, you're not paying a dime. You're not paying a dime. You're going to be showered with turkey legs. They're just going to be thrusting them upon you.
And I personally don't like turkey legs. There's too many tendons.
I don't either, Gaby.
Bones. Charday loves them, but they're too hard to eat.
It's basically just a handheld gristle stick is all it is. I don't like any. I'm not even a fan. You ready for this, Gaby? You think that's a hot take? Get ready for this hot take. I don't even like chicken wings because I think they're too much effort for what you get. Now, boneless chicken wings, perfect, because that's basically a chicken nugget.
That's like popcorn. You just don't go,
right.
Go, yeah.
Yeah, you just drop those right down the gullet. But chicken wings are too much work for what you get.
Drop down the gullet. I wonder if that's an American phrase the British are familiar with.
That's a good question. Maybe I'll break that one out when I get into to Germany. And say, pardon me, do you have a pretzel that I can drop down my gullet and then watch a security tackle me?
What's this exotic language you speak? Oh, that's French. I'm trying to.
What was it? What is this language you speak? You're in Germany now.
Oh, Americans never sounded stupider on this podcast.
Nope, you definitely come in with the Peter Sellers Jacques Cousteau there. Does your dog bite?
Oh,
No, my dog does not bite. You know that gag? That's like one of my favorite gags of all time.
Yes, I thought you said your dog does not bite. I did.
That is not my dog. Here, doggy.
I was like, do you have a rim? A what? A rim?
Aaron. Yeah, that's good stuff. We are over 40 minutes into this, and I'm extremely proud of us. We have not talked about a single game, Gaby. We have not talked about a single game. And you ployed me here by saying that we were going to talk about
I did.
party games. And let me tell you, if there's one aspect of my board gaming knowledge that I am very confident in, it is party games. I'm being very sarcastic. I used to almost never play party games, Gaby, but I have found that since I've worked at the Dice Tower, I've grown, and I've mentioned this before, I've grown a new appreciation for party games. I didn't know if you wanted to transition into that, but I kind of pushed us kicking and screaming through the door.
I'm finding unless I'm gaming with Jerry, party games is about all I'm able to get in. As part of this discussion, when you first get into board gaming, when you discover Catan and then Ticket to Ride, Carcassonne, then you start snowballing into the more and more and more and deeper and deeper and deeper into hobby board gaming. You're thrilled about it and you want others to join you. I've tried to do that with my wife over the past 20 years. She has resisted mightily. She has zero interest. But yet I kept buying games thinking, maybe she'll like this one. Maybe she'll like this one. And 20 years into the, let's see, no, actually, we're going on 24 years. I finally discovered, not of gaming. Actually, I think the first time I played Catan was roughly 10 years ago when I really discovered this side of board gaming. And I'm just now realizing, you know what? Stop it. She doesn't care.
Yes.
She does enjoy. Last night, to get into it, we played Time's Up with a large group of people.
Okay.
Non-board gamers, just a group of people. And I was like, it's basically Taboo or Password, but here's the, little caveats to it. A resounding success. A resounding success.
Yeah.
And that's what she enjoys. She does enjoy Coup. She enjoys that one a little bit. So that's not quite as party game. That's a little more, into the gaming side. But so I was going to start with, 2 weeks ago, a friend of mine that I have played Terraforming Mars with and a few board games, worker placement style, he was bringing his nephews over. They're ages 16 and 14, and they were going to, him and his wife were going to spend the evening with us. He says they enjoyed Patrician. I showed him Patrician, which is a very simple board game. And he took it to them. They enjoyed that. And they have since purchased like Ticket to Ride. And they're 14 and 16. So I'm thinking, okay, what am I going to show these kids to? So I curated Royals, one of my personal all-time favorites, a Dice Tower essential.
It is indeed. I was going to mention that, but I didn't have to because you're a professional.
Love Royals. And to me, it's Ticket to Ride, but better in the fact that you're doing this, card set collection of cards, and then you play them to go into these area control, I guess. Fantastic game. Every time I've brought this out to people that aren't familiar with board games, they grasp it quickly and it's super simple to play. They love that. I was like, well, what about some sort of like push your luck? I have Port Royal. They liked that. It was a good one. But their tendency is they want to learn about board games. So they liked, the only one that may have been a little bit more gamier was I showed them Cryptid. They really enjoyed Cryptid. It's something they'd never seen nothing like that before. They found it really interesting. It was pretty, the 14-year-old, I was like, this specific set of rules is yours. yours alone. This is all you need to ignore everything else in this pamphlet.
Right.
This is your sentence. He moved that cube 5 times before he finally got it to where it's supposed to be. So that was a little more difficult for him to grasp, but he finally did get it. And then we played Skull, just the coaster game,
Oh, yeah. Love Skull, man.
Skull's one of my all-time favorites. So I was like, well, here's Royals being kind of a little bit more of a card game, a game. Port Royals, simple card bluffing game. Cryptid probably was the heaviest, obviously. And then Skull was just a fun bluffing game. I really wanted to show them High Society because I love that one and I wanted to see how they'd like that, but I could not freaking find it, but I don't know where with. But even at that, and my wife will play Royals, but it's not, she'll play it if she has to. If I have a group and we need another person to play. But mostly for her, it is the time's up style of game, the code name style, the big party games where everyone's playing the same game,
And that's perfectly valid. I think what my issue was when I had a bit of an aversion to party games, it was only because I just don't think that the groups that I was playing games with really enjoyed party games. And so honestly, you're not going to play a party game in a small group. You're not going to, generally you're not going to play party games with, 2 people. You're definitely not going to play a solo party game, right? So the groups that I was gaming with generally shied away. Now, not completely. Every so often, if some new, like when Codenames came out, of course, we played Codenames and we played Coup and, because that's if you broaden the definition of what a party game could be, sure, I think you can put those in that same general, category. So we played those types of things. Even something, this is really kind of stretching it, but even something like Love Letter, I think you can almost look at in that way. You know what I mean? And we played that. But, a lot of times we talk about when you're, a hobby gamer, you go through these kind of, I don't know what you'd call them. You go through these stages, I suppose. And, so you have like this acquisition stage where you're buying everything and then you realize you can't play everything. So you have to call. But I also think that there are stages of the types of games that you want to play. So, relatively early on, I got into the more mid-weight Euros. I mean, that was the stuff that was blowing my mind. I didn't know games could do this. And so I was getting really, really caught up in those. And I was maybe discounting the importance, if that's the right word, of these other types of games. And the funny thing is that now I'm finding myself more attracted to lighter games, party games, games with heavier interaction, just because that's the kind of mood that I've been in lately when I'm playing games. That's not to say that it's not going to switch back. And it's also not to say that I never will play a mid or heavyweight Euro game again by any means, or even an American style game. But I've been finding myself really more attracted to games that are just a little bit more about just having fun with the people around the table. You know what I mean? I played Circus Flocati, which, have you ever played that one?
No, never heard of it.
It's a Reiner Knizia push your luck card game. Super simple. You could teach it to the same people you're teaching to, these other games you were talking about. It's very, very light. As a matter of fact, it's one of those games. Have you ever played games where, I think Skull is almost one of them, where you almost don't have to teach the rules. You can you take the first turn yourself, and you basically have taught them how the game works. And I like games like that where you don't have to front load them with a bunch of stuff. You're like, here's what you do on your turn. Watch me. And I do my thing. And, I would purposely bust because it's a push your luck game to show them how you bust and then tell you how you're supposed to play. Real simple, real fun. So, all that's a long-winded way of saying I'm gaining a new appreciation, or maybe I'm more in the mood for those types of games here lately.
Well, I find that interesting, being your job profession. I would think that
in what sense?
I would think you would be more, not that you wouldn't play those style, but I would think you're also playing heavier games.
Oh, I am. Make no mistake. But that's done for a particular purpose. You know what I mean? That's because, we play things for review. I'm taking that out of this conversation because that's a separate thing. doesn't mean that means I've lost the joy of gaming. So like if I'm playing, a heavier game for the purpose of review, it's not like it's necessarily a slog. You know what I'm getting at?
Okay. So you're talking in your personal life.
Personal life, or when I'm at conventions or something like that, or if I don't specifically have a slate of games I need to play for the purpose of review, more and more I'm finding myself going to, games that are on the lighter end of the spectrum. So Clover, we played a bunch of that. Things like we played just on the, we did our Autumn Spectacular last week. And one of the games we played was Telestrations, and that was incredibly fun. We just played like 35, 40 minutes of Telestrations. And you don't keep score. You know what I mean? A lot of these games, you're not even keeping score. You know what I mean? It's just about...
Even So Clover. So Clover has... They like that one too. I think they like it a little bit more than Codenames even at this point. Being in... My wife was like, we need to redraw, like she was wanting to amend the rules. I said, no, part of it is you have to think of something to go with these two words. That's the singular difficulty part.
That's the whole game.
This. Yeah.
Right.
So, but So Clover has been a big hit because I don't get to play the heavier games but once a month. I would prefer those, but I also, when you're having fun with a big group of people, I don't mind at all playing the Time's Up, the Code Names, a game of Mafia. I love Mafia. I would play Mafia all day. That's one of my all-time favorites, but I like a big group for that, like at least 9 to 10 people to play a good game of Mafia.
And you role play Mafia just by showing up, Gaby. Just by sitting at the table, you're role playing Mafia because you absolutely look like a mob boss. I mean, I'm sure you've been told that before.
I should use the last name Dilisio, and I'd be more in the groove of things. But
that is very true. But you do bring up an interesting point, Gaby, and one that I probably wasn't considering is that I think you're absolutely right. I have the luxury of choosing to play party games now, if that sounds right, if that makes sense, because my job is I'm surrounded by the hotness, right? Like I'm playing all of these games that are kind of the that people are interested in because we want to get them reviewed. And so I think you're right. I think it's the fact that I have access to those and I'm playing them relatively regularly that allows me to explore party games more, because otherwise I probably wouldn't. So I hadn't really even considered that.
Well, I'm here to open your eyes, Mike. That's what I do.
You are just like a tilt-a-whirl carny. You expose all of the mysteries of life, Gaby, and now I see things through a completely different lens.
I have stopped proselytizing, I said. When I first got into gaming, I was like, taking my games with me everywhere, trying to get other people to play. And they don't care. They don't want to.
Nope.
So I have, as I was saying, I was like, it's taking me, I'm hard-headed and thick-headed, but I'm finally, okay. So you have to just go with the flow. And so we went to a gathering just yesterday evening, and they know you're the game guy.
Sure. Yep.
So they're like, they wanted me to bring Happy Salmon, but I've played that till I get ridiculous headaches, and it's too
right.
So I forgot that game. We played it the last several times we went out to these groups. I said, no, I didn't bring Happy Salmon, but I did bring Time's Up, and so we played Time's Up. But yeah, if there's a big group and they're like, bring something we can all, and it's not a situation where, okay, us 4 will play this game, you 3 play that game, and, that's not going to happen. This isn't a game group. It's a casual group of friends that want to do something together. So, therefore, it's a Time's Up. Telestrations is also usually, it's never gone badly. The only thing with Pictionary is you get the people that are, I can't draw. I'm like, that's the point of Pictionary.
That's the whole point, yeah. Well, there's this new game, the Doodle Dash game, where that one, it's like, you're almost, because there's a speed element, you kind of lose that whole worry about, I don't draw well. You know what I mean? Because it's not really about drawing well, it's about drawing quickly. You know what I mean? So that kind of alleviates some of that stuff.
But yeah, and it was Time's Up is so fun. I love the evolution of the rounds and what just
the meta,
the meta. Yeah, it's like this one simple gesture. People know that this is the devil don't play the fiddle down in Georgia, you know, whatever it is. It's just ridiculous.
Right.
And it's so funny to just see how you can narrow this song title that is 8 words long down into one simple gesture and people know what it is. So it was just, it's really good fun. Some people say that's what gaming's all about, is enjoying time with your friends.
Some people say that the gormless ones, the gormless ones say that.
Gormless. That's how you're supposed to say it.
Gormless.
You know what? We're well into an hour. This is like 4 episodes of the Board Game Snobs normal show. So
chop this up, baby. Chop it up and turn it into about 7 or 8. You know what I mean? I've got no problem with that, right?
Yes,
that's right. You can get those huge download numbers multiplied 7-8 times, Gaby.
The 4-part miniseries. I'll just title it Dilisio.
I like that. Yeah, because people now are used to the limited series, right? Because of all the things that you see on. Call this a limited series, and then just meet it out in small chunks. And then the people, as things go on, the numbers will just explode.
And so, like, one portion of this show will be entirely British slang terms.
Like a typical episode of Sporadically Bored, actually, yeah.
That's going to do it for this episode, Mike. Thanks for bailing me out as my co-host.
Gaby, it was my distinct pleasure.
I appreciate it. Last time we had you on here, I looked, it was September 2020. It's been far too long. Are you
kidding me?
2020, yes.
Well, now I feel slighted. I was feeling good going into this, and now it's been it's been over 2 years.
That's how fast time goes. That's how fast
it doesn't feel fast to me. I mean, that's ridiculous, Gaby, but all right, I guess.
Well, we'll make up for it in the future.
Look, I guess you just don't want the numbers, is what you're saying right now. You just don't want the adoration. All right, well, look, I tried, Gaby.
We prefer to fly under the radar, Mike. That's where we're most comfortable. All right, well, you can find Mike. Do you have anything to say? I mean, everyone knows, like we said, this one big circle of a diaphragm. Yeah. What did you say? What was the word?
Yeah. I don't think I used that word, Gaby. I think that came directly from you. I take zero responsibility for that.
Venn diaphragm that Mike uses.
Sporadically Bored, Dice Tower, that's all I got.
Do you do solo mode anymore?
No, technically I don't. Well, I've still kept the page up. I still have my old playthrough videos on YouTube, so if anyone wants to watch, solo playthroughs, but I haven't, since I've started working at Dice Tower, I haven't done them there because I do solo playthroughs on the channel now, on Dice Tower now. So yeah, it's right now I'm keeping those out there in case people, sometimes people use them to help them learn how to play games. Yeah. So I keep them up there for the time being.
Your videos where I learned several. Paladins of the West Kingdom, which I've sold, but I learned to play on your solo mode.
Yeah. I've actually had a few people tell me that they've used that video because that can be a tough AI when you're first getting used to it.
It is. Well, again, thank you for coming on, Mike. Thanks for listening. I'm Gaby.
I'm Mike.
We'll see you next time.
Bye-bye.
Thank you for tolerating this episode of the Board Game Snobs. Stay classy.